Fox 4 is celebrating Black history with a look at the legacy of a Fort Myers couple who helped shape history both here in Fort Myers and in the heart of the civil rights movement. Our Leslie Dellis-Bohr has the story of Reginald and Bernadette Billips.
Said, you know, this guy is real. I mean, he's really leading the people and doing for us what we need to have done. And so he was my idol.
Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., the man who drew crowds of listeners, leading the way down the Edmund Pettus Bridge, the March on Washington, and the streets of Birmingham, Alabama, where Reginald Billips, a teenager, lived during a time that is almost unimaginable to many.
Segregated schools, stores, lunch counters, everything. And so this was a movement to rid Birmingham of this.
With a front row seat to history inside the Bethel Baptist Church.
You know, the church that I grew up in was, in the early days, the Mecca of the civil rights movement in Birmingham. The Southern Christian Leadership Corps started there. My pastor, Reverend Fred Shuttlesworth, was the leader of the movement in Birmingham.
Billips not only attended Sunday service at Bethel, but meetings that prepared him to help lead the way, shaping history for generations to come.
Pretty much every Saturday I'd be somewhere marching or sitting in at a lunch counter. We were taught nonviolence. We had classes that we had to attend before. You weren't just, okay, go in that store and sit at a counter. You were told how to sit, what to say, how to order, what not to do.
But one day inside of Bethel Baptist Church, preparing for a march, he was approached by a man many could only dream to meet, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. himself.
And he walked, and I was sitting on the edge, and he said, are you a leader of the group? And I said, I'm the assistant. The leader's on the other end. And he just said, you guys don't know what history I remember he said, you guys just don't know what history you're making. Be proud of what you're about to do. And every time something happens, just think that years from now, people are going to be talking about this.
As a teenager, Billips took what Dr. King told him with a grain of salt at the time, realizing today he played a part in the reshaping of a nation.
You know, that's been 50 years ago. But to watch his leadership, his command of the English language was like no other man I had ever seen.
Living to see the change he helped build, a young teenager from Birmingham says after looking at the year 2020, it's a shame how many steps have been taken back after he and others put their best foot forward for change. But there's one solution to the problem. It's a practice Billips and his wife Bernadette preach. The couple opening Oxford School of Music, the first Black-owned freestanding private music school here in Fort Myers, says it's simple. Get to know your neighbor, no matter gender, race, or color.
The world needs to be diverse. And so that's why we started with, okay, we're going to teach, it doesn't matter who it is. My staff, the same thing. I just don't want one style of teacher. What does that accomplish? It's not making the world unified. Whoever came in the door and wanted to become a part of our school became a part of the school. As a result of that, we're quite diverse. Unheard of in 1987.
Bernadette Billips, a native of Fort Myers, says during the time of the civil rights era and segregation, the city of Palms was a different world, nothing like Birmingham. But for Blacks living in Dunbar, it was their world. And looking forward to the future, the Billips say the fight is not over, and despite their strides, there is more work to be done.
The things that they have that we did not have, simple things like going to the movies, we couldn't do that. We had our own movie to go. Going downtown, there were certain times of day you could and could not shop. That is no longer there. And that's the bottom line to this entire thing. We got to know each other. And we have to communicate.
In Fort Myers, Leslie Dellis-Bohr, Fox 4 News.
And Bernadette Billips also has notoriety for something else. She gave voice lessons to former American Idol finalist Vonzell Solomon from Fort Myers years ago.